Hey everybody, and welcome to another Tausken review. Today we'll be taking a look at Deponia Doomsday, the final game in the Deponia series. Doomsday honestly felt like a massive disappointment to me. I was really enjoying the first three games in the Deponia collection, and while the last one didn't feel quite as good as the first two, I still really enjoyed the series. But it feels unfortunately like Doomsday was written as a response to people who disliked the original three games' ending. At the beginning it even begins with a song, much like every other Deponia game has traditionally, talking about the game and where it's going. But it talks about how you didn't really like our previous ending, well let's see how you like this one. And even mentions things like how you can't always get the ending you want. It ends up feeling super meta, and oftentimes the game's characters will even comment on it as well. This is because Doomsday is written as a story in a time travel where Rufus goes back in time to try and change the timeline with others, but are constantly stopped and prevented from changing the timeline, and mentioned how they can't change things. It begins with an old Rufus running around from monsters, alone, lonely, and blowing up Deponia after what appears to be some apocalyptic event of some sort that has happened. It even references that Elysium has long since crashed into Deponia. It's an interesting concept, and the game definitely has some cool things that it plays with, such as time travel, having you reset certain chapters to earlier segments, having you replay it in different new ways with your new knowledge that you have. But it all ends up feeling like it's all for nothing, as the quality just isn't really as good as the others. The puzzles, the writing, the characters all feel lacking compared to the previous three games. Like this game was simply written as an afterthought to try and please fans and then really just stick it in their face that you can't change things. The jokes just don't hit as hard as they did in Deponia 1 or 2 either. It also largely replays a lot of old sections of the game. There's some new content here for sure, but it's mostly retreading old grounds and plot lines through the time travel lens. This makes the game feel a bit redundant compared to the others. The ending in particular falls completely flat in its face. And while I get the idea Daedalic was trying to go for, you can't change things, this is fate, it ends up making the game feel like a complete waste of time. What did I do spending all that time playing the game if nothing changed? Ultimately play point-and-click games for interesting worlds, characters, stories, and fun puzzles, but none of that is really had here. There's definitely a couple interesting puzzles, I like some of the new locations we got to go to, but if the story is ultimately pointless, then what was the journey for? Doomsday also seems to lack a lot of the presentation factors of the previous games. Previously in Deponia 1, 2, and 3, in the collection you get short songs before, after different chapters and segments of the game narrated by an outside character, which are gone. It very much feels like this game was built on a low budget as possible and as short of a development time as possible to try and get it out the door. Reusing content, lacking a lot of the things that made the other games great, it just doesn't feel like it's up to par. Overall, I don't necessarily hate Doomsday, but it feels completely unnecessary. By the end of the journey, I felt like I had wasted my time in a game where the story didn't change at all. While the added context, some of the new characters was nice, being able to see them in different ways at different times and stuff like that to give a new lens on things is cool, but it ultimately ends up feeling like the entire journey was pointless. As a result, Doomsday Deponia gets a 6 out of 10. It's an average to slightly above point-and-click game with some decent visuals and some okay puzzles, but the story is just terrible. So if you're in it for the story of Deponia, I'd say completely skip this game. It's going to feel like a waste of time. If you just want some fun puzzles to play, sure, pick it up if it's on a sale, and you'll probably have some fun with those. But I just don't feel like this game is really worth it. It's reusing so much content, it's not really adding any value to the overall franchise, it's just a waste of an addition.